Alright, you might think that plants are boring, but you are wrong. They are exciting, and we are going to introduce them to you in this lecture. So what are plants? Well, phylogenetically, we can determine their relationship, which is structurally different than our algal species, which can photosynthesize. There are four main characters which are derived by plants, which separate them from our algal relatives. So first is they have alternation of generations and multicellular dependent embryos. They have apical meristems, multicellular gametangia, and walled spores with sporopollen, which are produced in the sporangia. This all might sound like mumbo jumbo, but we're going to clear it up for you as we talk about the different groups of plants. So first, we have this alternation of generations in this haploid and diploid stage, both of which have multicellular life stages. Apical meristems refer to the growth of, and we looked at these in the onion root tips and under the microscopes, the area of mitosis which is occurring, which is where growth occurs at the roots and the shoots. A multicellular gametangia, this is the structure which produces gametes, and then walled spores in sporangia. Okay, and we'll explain more about that in a bit. So plants are important because, of course, we have to eat plants, and if you eat only meat, those things that you eat plants. So you need it for your food, your clothing. It's important for building structures. Most of our homes have wood in them. And they're also very important pharmaceutical agents for many of our drugs, including aspirin, which is a ubiquitous drug for pain relief. They also provide many ecosystem services, so they clean our air and our water. At the base of our food chain, they help decompose nutrients and recycle nutrients and make them available for us as humans and other organisms as well. They also prevent erosion, so allow us to plant other things and increase the biomass of an ecosystem. Alright, so the origin of plants, they originated from an algal ancestor of the Bryophytes, and they share a lot of the same characters as Bryophytes. Here's a Bryophyte here, looks similar to a plant. There are four groups of land plants. Non-vascular plants, which include the mosses, are the most well-known group, liverworts and hornworts as well. Seedless vascular plants, which are the lycophytes and pterophytes. Pterophytes are our ferns. Gymnosperms, which are cone-bearing evergreen plants, and angiosperms, which are flowering plants. Each of those has different characters, which sets them apart from the other. And here then is our phylogeny of our plants. You have seed plants. This represents a monophyletic grouping, right? Vascular plants is another monophyletic grouping. And non-vascular plants, however, is a paraphyletic grouping, right? Or you could even say polyphyletic, depending on where you kind of draw this line. The relationship between gymnosperms and angiosperms, those are sister taxa. And so we can use some of the things we learned about phylogeny and apply them to our different types of plants. Now, these land plants evolved from organisms, algal relatives, which came out of water. And so as they evolved for life on land, they had to evolve specific structures or components to deal with the challenges of land. So one of them is desiccation, or drying out. The other is that they are no longer buoyant in water, and so they have to have some sort of structure to counteract the effects of gravity. And finally, they have to obtain nutrients. So they were surrounded by nutrients in the water, but now there's not as many nutrients in the air, so they have to find a way to access nutrients. Alright, so we're going to talk about each of these characters as they relate to our different groups. So non-vascular plants have apical meristems, sporopollen, and dependent embryo. And then seedless vascular plants have all those, as well as a vascular system, lignin, leaves, cuticle, and roots. Gymnosperms have seeds and pollen, as well as the rest of those, and angiosperms have everything, including flowers and fruits. So our non-vascular plants, or bryophytes, include liverworts, hornworts, and mosses. And they have that apical meristems where they can continually grow in the roots and the shoots through mitosis. And this is activated even when plants are damaged, such as when you cut the grass. Sporopollen is a polymer that prevents desiccation, so again, how to counteract being exposed to the air. All the spores have this outer layer of sporopollen to contain the spores and keep them from drying out. Dependent embryos, these are embryos which are formed after fertilization in egg, and then they are dependent on maternal tissue. So there is a separate tissue from which it was derived, which provides nutrients for that embryo. Alright, the seedless vascular plants have a vascular system. A vascular system is xylem and phloem. You can see that when you cut a celery. There are two different colors within these small, this is a whole ring of xylem and phloem. The xylem is for conducting water, the phloem is for conducting macromolecules, specifically sugars. And they go up and down parts of the plant to provide nutrients where they are needed. Lignin is a carbohydrate with a very rigid structure which allows for vertical growth. So here we have the counteraction of gravity. This allowed plants to grow very, very tall and very, very big. And it also provides structure for the xylem and phloem for the vascular tissue. Leaves are very important because they provide a greater surface area for pigments to be exposed to the sun so that photosynthesis can occur. The cuticle, which is found on the leaves, prevents desiccation, allows moisture to be trapped into the leaf, and gases also, but they can escape through these pores called stomata. Roots have multiple functions. They anchor the plant and also provide the water and nutrients to the rest of the plant. They also contain lignin, xylem, and phloem, so they're able to transport those water and nutrients to other parts of the plant. Alright, gymnosperms then also have seeds. So here we have the first seeds. A seed is an embryo and a food supply surrounded by a protective coat. Some of them have many means for dispersal, including attaching to animals, or maybe have little bladders for floating in the air or for floating in the water. Pollen is a structure which contains the male gametophyte. Pollen has the sporopollen in it as well, and this allows for dispersal through the air or via an animal to fertilize within the female gametophyte. Angiosperms then also have flowers. And flowers are formed in association with insects as a mechanism for fertilization, for transporting pollen from one plant to another. And this allows for more direct pollination. You don't have to produce as much pollen, and using an insect as a vector, it can transport it to many different areas very far away. Finally, fruits, which are matured ovaries containing seeds. They can be fleshy, dry, they can split, and we use many different types of seeds and fruits in the things that we eat. And this allows for nourishment and or dispersal of the zygotes. Some of these are very fleshy because they are nutritious. Things like birds will eat them, and then poop them somewhere else, and that will help disperse the plant to another area. All right, that's it for plants, except for this last slide, trick 2. All right, so you can use these characters then to determine what group of plants things belong to. This is Opuntia polycantha, which is the plain prickly pear, which is a type of cactus. And you can see it's a flowering plant. It has a vascular system. These spines are modified leaves. And so you would put it in with the angiosperms. And that's all.